morning and welcome to our press conference on housing this morning, setting out more of the detail of the material that we've included in our manifesto for the general election, setting out also our ideas on affordable housing, setting out our ideas on more rental housing, both for the elderly and general rental housing for the housing stock, and how we see the allocation of those properties for 50-50 sales, and indeed the allocation of elderly housing and how that frees up other stock. Joining me today is Samantha Sacramento, who has been Minister for Housing in the current GSLP Liberal government. We've already delivered approximately 1,000 odd units during the first term in office, and in the context of this second term, we're in the process of already selling about another 1,000 units. I think we rightly have the reputation as the parties that represent the real commitment to building new stock, the real commitment to breaking the back of the housing list, and in my view we are literally just around the corner in the last mile of breaking the back of the housing list again. It's important that we set things in context. I know that the other parties don't want to look into our history. We are the only ones with a proud history, that's why we look back to it. But if you think about the fact that in 1988, when we took over from the AACR, the housing waiting list was in crisis. There were 4,000 people on the housing waiting list, and yet by 1996 there were only 200 people on the housing waiting list. By the time we took over again in 2011, the housing list had exploded again. The numbers were once again astronomical, and we are in the process of finally taming that housing waiting list. So if the GSD get back into office, they will once again promise a lot and deliver very little. If we get back into office, we will continue delivering. I was yesterday with Samantha and others at Monscalpa Mews, where we were husting, and at those hustings we could see that what we had put into our 2011 general election campaign manifesto, Monscalpa Mews, had been built exactly as we had set out. We now have very exciting plans going forward. We are delivering on Hassan Centenary Terraces, we're delivering on Chatham Views, we're delivering on Bob Palisa Mews, and all of those will enable us to do what we've set out to do, which is to break the back of the housing waiting list, in addition to the new projects that Samantha will talk to you about now. So thank you for joining us in this live press conference, and thank you for taking the time to look at what it is that we're going to do to deliver more affordable 50-50 housing and more rental housing, both for the elderly and for general housing allocation.
Housing is something that's very important to everyone, and therefore it's very important to us. We have a very comprehensive plan to be able to address the housing needs for Gibraltar and for all of Gibraltar. So our plan meets the needs of everyone at every level. Our plan will, as you know, provide for affordable housing, because there's a great demand for affordable housing, and we have a great track record in providing for affordable housing. But whether it's affordable housing or purpose-built plans for the elderly, or indeed the provision for rental stock, we've got it covered in every area. If I can start with our track record while we've been in government of the construction of affordable housing, and as Fabian said, the immense joy that we have when we visit the estates that we've already built. As you know, we've already provided for almost 1,000 affordable homes at Beachview Terraces and at Monscalpa Mews. That means that, as you know, we have been able to provide for so many families in Gibraltar, and that for us as a party and government gives us great satisfaction to be able to provide our community with housing needs. As you also know, we have already launched very exciting plans for the next wave of construction of affordable housing, starting off with Hassan Centenary Terraces, which, as you know, the sale of which has already commenced. And just last week we had the deadline for applications for anyone who was interested in the other two affordable housing estates, Bob Palisa Mews and Chatham Views. This in total will provide us with 1,300 further homes for purchase. And obviously the more homes we provide for purchase, the more we provide as well for people who cannot afford to purchase. Naturally, it's basic arithmetics. The more we build, the more that people who are on the waiting list who can purchase will purchase, and that means that anyone who cannot afford to purchase will have less people in front of them on the housing waiting list. Because really, the crux of the matter when it comes to providing for housing is to provide fluidity. If we have a continuous provision of housing, whatever kind of housing it is, it means that there will always be movement. And the reason that we found ourselves in the housing crisis in 2011 was because of the acute shortage of housing that we inherited from the previous administration, who just did not make housing a priority for 16 years. And we've been playing catch up. But I think that given our plans, given the substantial amount of housing that we've provided so far, and our exciting plans going forward, I am absolutely confident that we will break the back of the housing waiting list. Because another really great thing in terms of the provision of housing, and probably one of my favourite projects, is the provision of housing for the elderly. As you know, we have built a lot of purpose-built flats. We've already built Charles Brousson House, we've already built Seamaster Lodge, and we have a further 2 projects in the pipeline following the model at Seamaster Lodge, where we have a block for the elderly within an estate of affordable housing, and that gives us an enhanced community feel where people can particularly live with their grandchildren, and that's a model that's been very successful at Monscalpe Mews. For every rental flat for the elderly that we build, we are essentially providing further units in our housing stock. Because of our demographic and because the majority of people who are on the housing waiting list to acquire purpose-built flats for the elderly currently live in government rental accommodation, it means that for every flat that we allocate in an elderly flat, it's a vacant flat that we have returned to our stock. So if we look at the whole picture, we have a lot of stock returning to us from people who, I would say, upgrade to elderly flats, because the quality of life that they have in those flats and the community feel and being able to live independently for longer just, cannot be quantified. So we've got that coming back to us. In the whole scheme of things, insofar as provision for elderly flats, we will have almost 400 of these. So in terms of actual building for rental, that gives us almost 400. That is a tremendous figure of building for rental. So if anyone tells us that we don't build for rental, we do. We just do it in a way where really we can maximize both the cost of the construction with the delivery to the end user. Because really we have 2 people, if not 3 people or families benefiting from this construction. So when you add up the provision of rental housing stock for the elderly, which has a knock-on effect in increasing the availability of housing rental stock so that we can provide for people on the waiting list, and being able to provide for people on the waiting list by building affordable homes, which means that people can buy, and those who can't means that their list moves faster. I am absolutely confident that we can finally solve the housing problem in Gibraltar. But if we can't, we have an iron cast commitment that we will build for rental further. What I haven't mentioned is our next exciting project, which is in our manifesto, and which, if we are returned to government, we will build. And this is another crucial step in the provision of housing for our community. I cannot think of a better use for the site of the old Queen's Cinema other than providing for our housing needs. You will have seen from our manifesto that we have already announced that this footprint will provide for housing in 2 ways. We will have more purpose-built homes for the elderly because, as I said, I don't think that we can build a better rental than purpose-built flats for the elderly, but we will also have affordable housing within that plot. Again, the combination of having elderly flats within a community so that we have the community feel. Not only will we have housing in that plot, but there will be other amenities, including provision for old-time dancing. Now, how wonderful to have that within this site. But we will not stop there, because the environment in which this building will be set cannot be more picturesque when we transform our current car park at Alameda Estate into another beautiful garden for us. You can see another park. You know that the philosophy in our government is to provide for every generation. We are providing in this housing project for anybody who wishes to purchase and get onto the housing ladder, for people from the older generation, and provide for them. But the most important thing is that, as you know, we are delivering a green Gibraltar. So this new project encapsulates everything. I love this project. I know that because of the way that we are changing how we deliver our government rental stock, and that we are delivering much faster, much better, and to a higher standard than ever before, I am absolutely confident that we will be able to provide housing for everyone in our community.
Thank you very much indeed. You'll see the designs for Queen's site are very exciting. They provide the opportunity to provide that element of affordable housing and the mix of rental housing also, in particular for the elderly in that area. There is a call, in my view, for affordable housing in the South District, and there is a call in particular for elderly rental housing, purpose-built elderly rental housing in the South District. We have a lot of people who have lived all of their lives in the South District. They want to move to elderly affordable, or rather elderly rental accommodation, but they would rather do that in the context of the South District, where they have built their lives, where many of their families will still be. So this is a perfect plot for that purpose. I was always fascinated by the fact that our opponents thought that we were going to use the Queen Cinema plot just for 23 parking spaces. It would have been foolish not to make the plot available for parking while something was developed on it, but it would have been, I would have thought, in the context of political vision, obvious that the plot was going to be used for something else. I think this is the optimal use for it. There is also a consideration to move the flyover that takes traffic up where it does now and move that around in a different way, so that the development can be a little larger and can be on the square which is the park. And so this will be an affordable development which will come onto the park with the flyover going in a different direction. If you go to the site, you'll see that the flyover is literally just a piece of concrete and tarmac which takes traffic directly up rather than round. So in the context of rejigging all of that area, that is also a possibility. And when you look at the numbers of affordable homes being delivered, and you look at the number of rental homes being delivered for the elderly, we do believe it may be necessary to build some rental homes for general rental also, in the context of moving more quickly to resolve the housing problem, and that will be factored in also. So if you want to vote for a party that promises you genuinely to deliver 500 rental homes, you can vote for the GSLP Liberals. That is not the difference between the GSLP and the GSD. The difference between the GSLP Liberals and the GSD is that the GSLP Liberals deliver what we promise to deliver, and the GSD just promise and then don't deliver. Remember that the manifesto that you're receiving from the GSLP Liberals is a commitment to deliver to you, as we have delivered in the past, or to explain to you why it's not been possible to deliver in the time. Remember that for the GSD, a manifesto is a list of wishes which they may or may not deliver. And that's not me saying so. Those are the words of former leader of the GSD, Peter Caruana, the person who everybody in the GSD tells us they aspire to be and who they take their cue from. So ours is a commitment to build 500 rental homes and more affordable homes, including to deliver the 1,000 plus homes that we've already committed to and the additional homes that we will commit to, and to break the back of the housing list. Theirs is the usual GSD aspiration wish list, which will not be deliverable. Thank you for listening. These are important commitments. They go to the root, not just of every family in Gibraltar, but they go to the root of building a better Gibraltar, building a Gibraltar where more Gibraltarian families can establish themselves, the Gibraltar that we want to deliver, the green Gibraltar of the future. the child-friendly city that we all want for our future generations. Thank you.